everything is under the feet of Christ. He's the victor, and he is in the highest place, in that untouchable position. He is in authority. He is the king.
In John 14, if we love him, we will obey his commandments. And so in this passage that we're in, this Olivet discourse, Matthew 24, his final teaching before barreling to the cross, he tells us 9 times to keep watch.
Place that we begin to make this real in our lives is by seeing it in the Word of God, by believing it and choosing to live according with the truth of the Word. Jesus took that on the cross, like full strength, the full weight of God's wrath. Jesus himself, Jesus became sin so that we could become the righteousness of God. Like Jesus died the death that you and I deserve so that we can have the life that he deserves. Jesus paid the price.
Good evening again. Welcome to My Story with Jake Aldridge. Hello. We had a great time last time. I don't know if you tuned in. Do you tune in nowadays? I don't know what words they use. I don't know if you watched Millie's story. Incredible. She was sitting there a few weeks ago. And as a result of that, she had hundreds of hits on her Facebook. It went out on Facebook. including some people that messaged her and said, I want to know how I can find God. So it's an opportunity to share the reality of God. And we've got a great guy called Jake from near Manchester. I'm going to read you a little verse before we start, Jake, if that's all right.
Yeah, cool.
And it goes like this. 1 Peter 2:9, I think it is. You have been chosen by God himself. You are priests of the King. I'm saying to you, Jake, you are a priest of the King. You are holy and pure. You're God's very own. This is the bit that I like. All this so that you may show to others how God has called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light. And we're going to hear something of the story. I had a photograph. You see the photographs of you, handsome fella. I had a photograph given to me by a guy called Steve Morgan when I was carrying the cross from Wolverhampton to Manchester. And I stayed with Steve. He's an airline pilot. And we carried the cross for a day together. And he phoned me up and he said, there's a great guy coming down to Cornwall, Jake Aldridge, and he sent me a photograph of this guy. So I stood there waiting for you to walk through the door of the engine house with this photograph of this kind of bearded guy, you know? Yeah. And of course you walked through the door and I think I must have said, you must be Jake Aldridge, and this is another shady character that looked like you. I was through to meet you and to, get to know you over. How long have you been down here now?
Since September.
Since September.
What's that, 9 months? 8 months,
great.
7 months? Yeah,
9 months.
Sure.
Great place to live. We were out in Chapel Porth doing a bit of body surfing a few hours ago.
We were.
Wonderful. Want to know a little bit about your life? We already know you come from near Manchester, a place called Poynton. You know Rob White, who used to be the director of British Youth for Christ. And so we've got quite a few things in common. Tell us a little bit about your home life.
Me? Home life for me, guys, or Lindsay, was, sweet. Like, just really peaceful, very filled with laughter. We lived on a dead end, so we just played sports all day, all night. School was very much a thing to get done. And it was just me, mum, dad, and brother.
So you got through school so you could go and have a load of fun.
Yeah, straight away we were playing out with the boys, just the guys on the street, just outside, basketball till, as long as we could. And then mum was calling us in. Family life for us was dinner table most nights. My mum and dad rarely argued. They were someone who I never heard abuses shout throughout the window, through the doors or. What
was your mum and dad like? I mean, describe them to me if they came through the door there. How do they come across?
Well, my dad's a big guy. He's got, 15, 16 stone behind him, strong. He's a brummy talking, deep-toned, bellowed man. And then my mum's quite petite and she's always in a hurry a little bit. She's from Bristol. She's very cheapy and chirky. And I
think you told me that your mum's the type of person that would come up behind you and pinch you on the bum or something like that.
Yeah, she would, yeah. If she didn't know, if she saw someone in the street and they didn't see her, she would.
I'm looking forward I'm going to protect my mum when she comes through the church. And your dad's a Christian, worked with Rob White, my friend, I understand. And he'd come into school, wouldn't he? He'd come into school, do assemblies or something. You told me about.
Well, Dad was a preacher in the local area, so the church. We went to school and my dad would come in and do assemblies.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Was that an embarrassment? I know it used to be an embarrassment when I do school assemblies, and my son Ishmael used to hide in the toilets because he was so embarrassed about his dad. But what about you?
Okay. Nah, me and Ishmael, we ain't similar on that. I think for me and my brother, we both had a really good relationship with my dad. And my dad's a very funny Peter Kay kind of laugh out loud. Like the whole room would be in stitches.
And what is he, Birmingham guy?
Yeah. So when he used to come to school and share the gospel, but he'd also and talk about God, the whole room would be in stitches. So we would all, it just meant kudos points for me and my brother at school, I'm sure.
So he came in and did that assembly you were telling me about being really well out or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so really, I mean, there are people that sit in your chair and their home life has not been a happy home life, you know, and they will share that. But you come across as if you've had great parents and basically at home it was happy.
Yeah, it was really is the word tranquil, just like very relaxed. Yeah, that's very difficult to say that it was like that. We never saw any arguments. Arguments were resolved very quickly.
Yeah.
My dad would have like this situation, say sorry boys, kiss, 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 goodbye, and move on. You know, conflict was resolved quite quickly, and
yeah. So let's just shift it up to the age of sort of 15. Did, like, you obviously, mum and dad had faith, and that it's incredible to hear of a happy home background. You know, that's incredible. That's an advert for God in itself, you know. Did God feature in your life at the age of 15? I mean, what?
To that point, like, my only experience of God was probably through my parents. My mum and dad both believed in God. They went to church. They were very passionate. They would have people around all the time. They were very active Christians, but my relationship with the Bible or church, it was just all from a place of like, yeah, cool, sweet, respect. You know, I believed it, but I didn't know it. I haven't experienced it yet. And so for me, growing up at 15, the only kind of times I'd thought about God was, I think in my earlier days, I was bullied a little bit at school, picked on, redhead, was quite skinny. And I think when the world was being unkind to me, maybe, and I felt lonely, I think I'll be like, if life is treating me this way, what is the point of life? You know, there'd be their moments kind of thing.
You'd have your thinking moments, would you?
Yeah, definitely, like deep pondering, like, and to the point where I used to stare at the ceiling and think, try and work it out. You know, like, what's the point of life? Well, you know, it was mad, but I didn't spend long, and you know, I was doing that. It was more just the backdrops of my thought, but the rest of my life was very social, full of sports.
You loved it. You played lacrosse and basketball.
Yeah, we played football, lacrosse, basketball,
table tennis, and you're just living for. You said like you were munching on the now rather than thinking about the future.
Yeah, and tournaments, anything competitive, I was in. You know,
Okay.
I think like most teenage boys, me and my brother were just doing that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just pushing on in terms of your age, like between say 15 and 18, what was happening in your life then?
15 to 18 for me was 6 foot. Passed all my GCSEs, wasn't meant to. So 1 minute I was going one way, next minute I passed, and I was just following the entire crowd of my mates. I had no ambition or sense of like architecture or, you know, scientist, what I wanted to do in my life. I was just following the crowd.
You just went with the sheep, if you like.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. What, ended up in sixth form college or something like that, or?
I turned up to A levels, did 3 months, played hundreds of hours of table tennis, and just laughed. Loved the social time of sixth form. It was just such a good buzz. But I failed. I realised very quickly I wasn't going to pass, so I backed out in December. So
so you just did 3 months, and then
3 months, mate. Yeah.
You come home and I mean, I'm just thinking if you were my boy, I'm thinking, oh, what's he going to do now? You know, he's dropped out of sixth form college.
Yeah. No, I never got them doom and gloom conversations. It was more just oozingly encouraging. But I very quickly went on to another college, signed up to another course, and did public services just to get something under my belt. That was the vibe.
Public services.
Public
so
services.
what that you go into? What, the police or what?
I was interested in the police. Yeah. Just because I liked the idea that it was a little bit this, a little bit that, bit social justice, you know, and on your feet, adrenaline, and but yes, that was.
So a couple of years of public service course, and then what?
Well, for me, a major life change that happened for me is just winding back a little bit. I went to this at 15, year 10. I went to this Christian camp, And for me at that point, I hadn't had any relationships with Christians really, other than, I'd say the most person that shared and talked about God in a convincing way was my dad. He never preached at me. It was just I just always come away going, he doesn't doubt at all. So I went from my dad to this Christian camp in me and my two best mates from our neighborhood, Alex and Sam, and we just had such a good laugh on this Christian camp. Met loads of these other Christians, boys like me, girls, you know, all the same. And that was the first time where I thought, wow, this Christianity, there's something real about these people, and it was authentic. And the relationships I developed in this week was so different to my relationships I had on the playground at home. And
the playground, it's more competition and ego and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I had loads of mates and stuff, but it just, there was something different about it. And I couldn't put my finger on it, and I thought, I loved it. And me and my mate, Sam and Alex, we just came home creasing in laughter. It was like our jaws raking, we'd had such a good week. And this was where in my own heart they said towards the end of the week, who wants to become a Christian? I was like, straight in the air, like, you know, it felt like in that moment just
so
a
you
child.
became a Christian every year, did you?
Yeah, I was just like, this is interesting. And there was a child heartness about what they were saying there. I just thought, this is real. I didn't know what it was. I just knew God. I believed the Bible. This is the first time where it was shared with me. And so then anyways, I went home trying to be this Christian, and I couldn't do it, mate. Like, I couldn't do it, Lindsay. I just had no power to change. I had no power to be, to read the Bible. I was not interested. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't pray. I couldn't, all my mates were non-Christians, and so I had this huge desire to follow God because at this Christian camp, I thought, this is real. I think I found But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it at all. So that's a bit of the backdrop, really, before we go on to sixth form.
Okay, so you have like 51 weeks of the year where you're not really living, you're kind of more living to be one of the lads. 52nd week, you yes for God and all the rest of it. I think that's something I hear a lot of people, like maybe at Soul Survivor, they feel the presence of God, they look round thinking there's 1,000 young people worshipping the Lord, they get caught up with that, but it's actually living the life. What brought you to the point where it was something far deeper than that?
Well, like you said, it was 51 and 1. For 3 or 4 years, from 15 to 18, 19, I had this experience of going to Soul Survivor or going to these Christian camps. And I was like, wow, they're all the same like me. They, they wear the same things. And it was all, that was quite helpful because I was thinking, God's relevant for them. He might be relevant for me. And so, but for this 4-year period, I just felt every year that my convictions about God got more real, but my life got worse. And my ability to, the hormones were going down, and the parties, and the life was more enjoyable, and my friends, and I couldn't change, Lindsay. I couldn't, and I felt like if I evaluate that entire time, that was God saying to me, Jake Aldridge, you can't do nothing. You can't change yourself. You can't stop swearing. You can't even believe in yourself. Do you know what I mean? And it was God whispering, saying, yield, let go of your life. You're powerless. And I didn't realize that happened. For the first 3 years, from 15 to 18, I just felt I was getting so frustrated. I'd go to Christian friends or go to my dad and say, Dad, what do I need to do? And then it only got to the age of 19 where I was so sick of this tension in my mind of not being able to do it, like trying to read the Bible, and it was just dry, And then I remember I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I'm a hypocrite, and I was just at the end of myself, and I think that was God just bringing me to the end, saying, you can't do nothing, Jake, yield. And went to this local church, I remember, it was round the corner the entire time, and it wasn't in a split moment, but there were moments where it was like a light bulb came on, and my heart God was just revealing himself to me. And for the first time in my life, the Bible was very relevant. It was actually impacting my behaviour, and it was changing the way I thought. It was changing my feelings. It was satisfying, exciting, challenging. Church, the people, this church that I went to, for the first time in my life, I was like, they're going through the same things I am, and it was just amazing. It wasn't a cult or anything like that. Something was going on inside of my heart where I felt and experienced genuine change. And furthermore, it was working. That was what I was after for all my life, for particularly the last 4 years. I was after genuine Christianity.
Yeah.
And now I felt something was working, and that was what was amazing for me. But change some of it was very gradual. Other things, like swearing, I remember it just literally falling to the ground and not even picking up words. So it was incredible, but really disillusioning, and what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that you were being prepared? God was preparing you, but He had to wait for you to get to that point where you really wanted Him. I mean, I think you did your ankle in or something, or some tendons, broke your tendons, all your mates are at sixth form college. You start that got you to a point where it's almost to a turning point in your life, I suppose.
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to there is basically space opened up in my life where at sixth form I was playing table tennis. We were going to drinking games and parties and clubbing, and the scene and hormones were going through the roof. But then when I failed sixth form, all my mates were very quickly going off to university, and life was getting serious for them. But for me, it was sobering. What am I going to do now? Can't play table tennis for the rest of my life. Can't play Call of Duty or FIFA for the rest of my life. And so there was elements of me that was beginning to think about my own career, but also some of the things I was wrestling with in my relationship with God and Christianity and the Bible and Jesus. That's when it had space really to be dealt with, I would say.
So you start a relationship with God. Did you eventually go on to college, or what did you do?
You mean at 19?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to this church, become a Christian, something happened. God was amazing, it was exciting. Didn't go to college, I was working with my dad's best mate at the time, who was a gardener. And lovely chap, love him to this day. And we did maybe 5 years together from 17 through to 22. And in them days, I just remember just digging holes, cutting hedges, mowing lawns, and we just talked about the faith, just talked about God, because we were in the van together, and it was really cool. Also, part of that, there was this part of the church, they had this group of people that used to go out on the streets every Friday. So anyways, they pushed me in there. I was a young person, filled with new faith, so went off there, and I'd say that was when my faith got chance to grow. From being this newborn tadpole to being on the streets and sharing, and that's where.
So you get on the streets in Manchester and share on the streets, and that would get you excited about Jesus. I mean.
Yeah, there were elements of that. I mean, the first time I went on the streets, I remember being cacking it. I saw some of my old school mates from school, and and I had this yellow cross on my t-shirt or whatever, and I was walking through the street, and I just wanted the curb to swallow me up,
Yeah.
But then, weeks and months went by, and I just found I loved talking to people about, talking to people, and then bringing in the gospel and talk. What do you think about God? What's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on that? And that's where I really felt that God matured me more, I would say, in my Christian faith. That was very helpful grounding, but. Yeah.
What was the next stage then in
life?
In life,
Mate, well, I did 3 years, 19 to 22, in this church, and with Chris, my gardening friend, and then at the same time, I kind of just grew a little bit. What am I gonna do? I want to be more than a gardener. So I hastily, probably a bit too hastily, went off to university, studied social work, moved to Liverpool.
You did. That's another thing we've got in common.
Yeah,
yeah. So you trained as a social worker.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Whereabouts was that?
In Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Love Liverpool, love the people, love the club, just loved the whole vibe. But from the second day I arrived, I was out of depth. You know, I was cutting lawns and trimming hedges to writing essays and reports, and for 3/4 years of my 3-year degree, I was out of depth. I was drowning. I was always come up for air, and I was always behind. I was slow. I wasn't quick enough in the mind. I couldn't write essays. It took me 6 weeks to write an essay. So basically, my life just took such a plunge. Career-wise, yeah, well done, Jake, you're doing cracking, keep going. But internally, I'd experienced these 3 years of such excitement, and my relationship with God was so good, and I just loved God. For the first time in my life, I was actually enjoying praying. I enjoyed reading the Bible.
Yeah.
But now I was at this university getting drowned with work and expectations and priorities and pressure, and coping for me in that time. I wasn't able to go to a church or to hang out with Christians, and I was just getting colder and colder and colder.
So you were kind of doing it the way people would say, oh, he's doing something good, he's going to be changing society, he's a social worker. But in actual fact, in terms of spiritually, that really messed you up. That 3 years messed you up from the way you explained it.
Yeah, I would say that, it did. It just choked me, and my coping mechanisms were a bottle of Corona, or I just went back to old way. The Jake Aldridge that used to live was coming back again, and I was living by my own means. And when I became a Christian in 19, when God touched me, I was really struggling with lust. It wasn't like with magazines or anything; it was all in here. And I experienced a lengthy time of victory against that. But then when I went to university and I started drinking and coping, and I wasn't spending time alone with God, just lust just put its grip around me,
Yeah, sure.
So I just described that season as a backsliding state of mind. All the way through that time, though, my heart never doubted God, the existence of God, or the reality of Jesus and what he did in me, and the satisfaction that I'd experienced before that season. But my state, my behavior had got me where I was, and I just felt it was just an increasing sense of shame and disappointment, and I just felt so ashamed, man, and broken about my own, how I'd behaved and how I felt like I betrayed everything I stood for. I felt like my friends had seen everything that I'd turned back from and then I'd turned to again. And
so you finished with university really in a state. Did you work as a social worker?
Well, the thing is, I finished university. It was such a relief to finish. I mean, a gardener, then social worker. It was euphoric.
Yeah.
I was dancing around the street of Liverpool, saying "We are qualified," I was screaming, But internally, the shame was there. Externally, I was a socialite. I was, very bubbly. But internally, I was in ruin, and I didn't know how to resolve that.
What did happen then? How did you resolve it?
So I finished in July, and then went to hung out with some Christians that I used to hang out with when I was 19 to 22 back at home in South Manchester. And I just remember being on my knee, we're in this group with them, and I just remember feeling totally broken about my own state. They were all praying and loving on the Lord. I had not seen a Bible, it felt like in 3 years, And so I remember looking at them, they had the Bible out, I was like, blink, this is good, but this is so unusual. And I felt shame, and I felt like, I couldn't even forgive myself, and I remember just sharing honestly with them. I can't remember what I said, but I just basically said, I am in a bad way right now, and I was someone who wore my heart on my sleeve, so if I was in a good place, I'll be in a good place. If it was a bad place, and I just shared that. And anyways, they prayed for me, kiss goodbye, and I can't remember what I did next, but literally in less than a 2-month period, there was God just cleaned me up so quickly.
This is like Pilgrim's Progress.
It was a
It's
fast
modern Pilgrim's
progress.
Progress. Yeah. It's like 1 minute you're going there, then you've got the slow despond. It's a great, if you ever want to sort of look at the Christian life, Pilgrim's Progress. I know it's, hundreds of years old, but it is. This is what's so helpful, and what you're sharing is the failure times where you feel shame, and often we don't like to admit that. As Christians, do we? We want to keep the show up, go to church, we're full of God, but you might not be. You might be actually really struggling. That's what's so fantastic, the way people were so good to you in that house group. They gathered around you. You were really honest about how you were struggling. And I always feel for people when they struggle, that they should be in an environment where people get around them and make them feel it's okay. It's okay that you're struggling. That's part of the Christian life. It's not just praying the prayer and the violins, which is what you're bringing out. What ended up? Where did you end up? You didn't end up as a social worker. You ended up doing something totally different.
Yeah, I just felt like I needed like a huge breath of fresh air. But God was working and cleaning me and encouraging me and very quickly helped me to believe I am still forgiven, and my own state convinced me otherwise, and then I was clean. I'm still clean. I can go to God. I can share what I'm struggling with again. So from that place, we went to Bangladesh. There was
Bangladesh. Another thing we got in common. I'm gonna have to grow a beard. Yeah, I've been to Bangladesh about 7 times, I think.
Okay.
So if I use Bangla words, you'd understand a few words. But I love Bangladesh. Yeah. Was that a good experience?
Yeah, we loved it. Went with a team, and it was boss. Like just 10 of us in a really rural village of Bangladesh, 7 hours north of the capital. It was old school, and
living the sort of life. This is not Western life at all. This is going back to just a simple life. And don't you find the Bangladesh people really? They got a sweetness about them and kind of almost like an innocence. They always say to me, "Oh, Bangladesh is the most corrupt country." But I maybe there is, maybe that is true. But there's another side to the Bangladesh people. There's a beauty about them. They take you to their heart and they love you, and I love Bangladesh. Yeah. So good experience.
Overall fantastic. Loved it. We served in a team. It
was with Tear Fund, I think you told me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And
you come back home. What then? You've had this great time.
In Bangladesh, I was praying about where to go next because I'd just done my social work, and then I was having this huge breath of fresh air. We were involved in some meaningful projects and rubbing shoulders with Christians, and I was like, "Oh, what do we do next, Lord?" World's my oyster, could go anywhere. And so, anyways, flew home to London, getting a bus from London to Manchester to go and see my mum and dad. Not seen them for months, and I had this. It was so unusual. I was walking down the street with my suitcase or whatever, and just a drop of thought just came into my head. Teen Challenge.
Right. This is the drug rehab people.
This is the Teen Challenge is
David
like an
Wilkinson.
International organisation.
Crossing the Switchblade.
Crossing the Switchblade. So I just I remember thinking about Teen Challenge. I read about 6 years ago, and it all went through my mind at 1,000 miles an hour. I was about to get the bus, and I thought that was really unusual. Anyways, getting on the bus, and then 2 hours later into this bus journey, a guy turned around and shared his Christian testimony with a lady in front of me, and he said he was a Christian. He become a Christian. He was an ex-heroin addict. He got saved at Teen Challenge. So I was listening to this. He shared a beautiful testimony with her, and I was just thinking, Lord, was that you? Wasn't really sure. Just sensitive and thinking about next steps, and I ended up, after that, checking out Teen Challenge, and I went to live with Teen Challenge for the following year.
Oh, so you went as a part of their, like a Bible college type of thing, was it, or what?
Yeah, basically Teen Challenge is like an old school Premier Inn building.
Yeah.
And they have within that, most of the guys, there's about 60 to 70 guys coming off heroin at various stages through their program, it's called. But after that, you can also go to a mini Bible school, and their Bible school's part of that grounds as well.
Brilliant.
So I lived and did life with them, and so it's really interesting.
You know, the more I'm getting to know you, it's just like you've been Bangladesh, you've been Teen Challenge, you know, like God seems to be kind of preparing you.
Yeah, colourful here and there.
Yeah. Where do you meet Rosie and all this?
So,
your dear wife.
Yeah, Rosie. We met in Bangladesh.
Oh right, in Bangladesh, like you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Chunder.
I had no idea, mate. Not at all. I wasn't going for that. It was just she was there and just found a really encouraging, really enjoyed conversation, and things went on from there.
And she's training. She's a nurse. Is that right? Or
she's a nurse now. Yeah.
Yeah.
She came home. So I did the first year of our relationship at Teen Challenge in Nottingham, and she did her first year training to be a nurse
down in
Southampton. So we were like 3-4 hours apart.
So did you move down to Southampton? What happened there?
So I'd finished the Teen Challenge and then moved everything down south and prepared to get married, set up, got a job, and yeah, we were in Southampton for about 15 months.
15 months. What were you doing there?
So it was ironic, really. I ended up doing a bit of gardening, a bit of social work, a bit of Teen Challenge, all in the same job.
You can see God's like little boxes of this, or we can get this guy together. You know, it's exciting, isn't it? It's just one of the things that I'm having the joy of listening to people's stories. You can see the preparation, how God is preparing. You know, so you're in Southampton, working, with ex-addicts and rehabilitation a bit, and that really brings you really down to Cornwall, isn't it, at some point?
Yeah, so basically, we got married, me and Rosie, and for the first 6 months of that, Rosie was knuckling down, finishing her degree as a nurse, really intense. I was loving life, working with these, we didn't have loads of addicts, but we had some, and I was landscaping, working with a Christian organisation. So we wanted to basically reprioritise the foundations, what it felt like, of our marriage, because the first 6 had just been quite intense.
Yeah, sure.
So we ended up going to the Philippines because we just wanted to serve, get involved, rub shoulders with missionaries, and.
So now I'm going to hear something else. A lot of Bangladesh, Philippines.
Sorry, Lindsay.
You ended up going to the Philippines.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Amazing.
we felt like the Lord opened doors. We had the finances, and so we moved on to the Philippines. We did 5 months there.
I think you mentioned that you met John and Paula Richards from I think the Hicks Mill way. I remember they were just about to go to the Philippines. These are folk from just a few miles away from here. As young people, they were going to go and be missionaries. You actually met them, I think, out there, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the Cornish missionaries. Yeah.
Cornish missionaries. Yeah. So this incredible, colourful experience. Living in the middle of Manila, which I think sounds more like living in the middle of a fairground. It's like the noisiest place you could have, the most colourful place you can be.
Yeah.
But you had a great time, met some wonderful missionaries who came and stayed at your sort of guest house that you were running.
Yeah, we for a very short period of time, we basically looked after a guest home, which was similar size to the Teen Challenge building, like a Premier Inn building. And we just had missionaries. Some of them were going on holiday, some of them were sick, some of them had never been to the mission field before, so all different types of people from all over the world were coming to this area, and they were staying with us. So me and Rosie,
Did you ever have a chance to go out to the...
Yeah, so we occasionally would nip off and see different
mission places.
Yeah, and what was going on, whether it's slum related or... we actually went off with John and Paul Richards into the mountains. And
all these precarious routes that you go on.
Oh, mate, you expect jungles and tigers and flipping, do you know what I mean? But they were amazing. We saw their ministry. They'd been there for, I think, over 20 years. And we saw the Bible schools in, the middle of nowhere, and all these, they were called the Mangyan tribe. And they just brought the gospel there. It was incredible. So we got practical flavours, but we also just looked after the missionaries and rubbing shoulders with them. With Rosie was sweet. We loved it. Yeah.
Because one of the things about these long-term missionaries, I mean, I've been to many countries carrying the cross, but I always feel like a bit hit and run. Like, go into a country and walk for a few weeks in the country, make lots of friends and preach the gospel where I can. and then I come back to England. But these guys like John and Paul have been out there, as you say, for a long time. I call them the real McCoy. You know, they're out there living with the local people. And in a way, you've been exposed to that. It's fantastic. Do you think that's another bit of preparation?
I don't know, mate. No.
I don't know. I got to think about the Engine House being a missionary sending church. You see, as a sort of. Okay, what brings you to Cornwall?
So the week before we went, a couple of weeks before we went to the Philippines, we celebrated Rosie graduating as a nurse in Cornwall. Anyways, just on holidays for the weekend, celebrating. Went to this random church. Just fancied going to church on the Sunday morning, and to be honest, both of us just what was being proclaimed at this church was what should be proclaimed. It was just beautiful. God was so relevant and exalted and spoken of in an esteemed high way, and loved it, man. The gospel was just beautiful at this place. And for like a couple of hours after we went to this church service, we were talking. Rosie was like feeling encouraged and challenged, and we were talking. And as a husband, I was so encouraged because Rosie had just been through such an intense 2-year battering, education system. And
she's amazing, Rosie. I mean, she's got a master's, I think. Didn't you say a master's in?
It's kind of a master's.
Kind of a master's thing. I mean, she's a high caliber woman.
She is. She's far smarter than I am. Yeah, she is.
So you go to this incredible church. Mention no names. Yeah, go on. Keep talking.
Yeah, so we just go to this incredible church, and Rosie's feeling so encouraged and so challenged, and so am I at the same time. And I thought, wow, that was quality. Just felt like God was really encouraging us in lots of things, and we were very quickly going to the Philippines. And anyways, when we were in the Philippines, we were planned to move back to Southampton to set up life for a little bit, but we did a U-turn, and we actually came back to live in Cornwall because of that experience at that church, which was the Engine House, which is this church.
Which was the Engine House.
Yeah.
So you came to this church, you experienced something very special here. So much so that you felt God was saying, I want you to move down here.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say that like we heard anything. It was more just that in our own hearts, I think, when you're rubbing shoulders with missionaries and you start thinking about like, okay, what is our life going to look like for like the next 5-10 years? Let's be serious about this. We started like mapping, what should we be prioritizing? It was like we need to knuckle down with a good church and get important, solid, and grow in our faith together, and have opportunities to express and be involved with Christians, and basically just take the faith seriously, live life once, and we didn't know how to, if you were to look at the map of England, how you were to choose that, but we just had experienced a really solid church service. We didn't know anything about the Christians, but we just saw it looked life-giving. On top of that, at that service that we went to, I remember the pastor, Tiva, he was just confessing amongst the whole church about some of the things that he felt that he'd done wrong, and so there was an area of humility there, and so it was just like tick, 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 tick. So when we were in the Philippines, we didn't know where else to go, but we just thought it's worth a gamble. Let's go for it. On top of that, as an absolute bonus, Rosie's got a really special relationship with her twin sister Jazz, and Jazz lives around the corner from here, so it was an absolute bonus, and of course that was a motivating factor to move in Cornwall as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, looking at your life now, I mean, do you feel God's sort of got some sort of challenge to you in your life? You've experienced more than a lot of us of the Philippines, Bangladesh. Teen challenge, if you're coming for a job, I'd give you the job. Right. Honestly, you have, in terms of life experience. But what do you feel God is saying to you as a guy now for the future? Have you got any sort of idea of how God might be challenging you?
Deep question, mate. Right now in the Cornwall, we feel really settled and at home. Rosie's really enjoying her work.
We love having you, mate.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. Brings a load of, so much humour and
Yeah.
And I think you should be doing my job, mate.
Yeah,
I think
I'm looking forward to that, mate. Sit down. Yeah.
So what do you feel God's saying then?
Difficult to really say. I don't know at the moment in time. I just, without going into, I don't think we've got time to really embark on that. But I feel like when I was at Teen Challenge, that was quite a poignant moment in my life. I did 3 years as a social worker, you know, every humanistic perspective to change people, and then end up at Teen Challenge, which I feel like God led me to, and I saw incredible things happen.
See people's lives, really. I mean, hard guys who have been changed by Jesus.
Yeah,
It's
literally.
amazing. I believe you had a conversation with the son of the
Yeah.
director.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I'll just dive into that a little bit. There was this one moment where I was sitting in class, because they had class there, and sometimes, because my name's Jacob, on birth certificate, my grandma calls me Jacob. No, I'm Jake though. People call me Jake. And there was this one moment. Sometimes when a preacher talks about the character of Jacob in the Bible, I think, ooh, you know, speaking to me kind of thing. Not all the time. It's quite rare. But there was this one moment where I was sat there and this guy started talking about Jacob and I was wrestling with God and his name changing, this, that, and the other. And there was something in me just thinking, he's talking about me. You know? And then he immediately switched in this sermon to the class about how he was called to being a preacher and going to the ministry, this guy. And in that very moment, I felt like God was communicating to me, but I had no idea what that looked like. Still, I don't have a lot of idea what it looks like now. I just felt like God awoke some desires in me that I never intended for, and that was to preach.
To preach.
Yeah, but I even saying that now, that it's not like, you know, what? Are you joking? You know, and all that kind of thing, and you know, it's a holy thing, Jake. You know, do you know all that?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so for a number of years, I kept that beach ball down after Teen Challenge because I didn't know how to express it and talk about it, and so yeah, here we are with that.
Yeah. And I've got no doubt at all that God, I think I've used this word twice already, preparation. He knows the future. I remember a missionary saying once, you know, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. And there was a song going around in those days about the God of the future. But for the time being, the verse, if you like, that's been coming around in my head is when Jesus said, and I love this verse, I have come to give life and to give it in all its fullness. And it seems to me, Jake, that you kind of wanted to live life for the full. From what I'm hearing, you know, you wanted to live life for the sports and to live life for the drinking and the mates and all the rest of it. And you've been through all that. And you've been through the ups and downs in following Jesus. But I'm pretty certain that if I was to interview you in 10 years' time, you'd have a whole load more of how God has used you. And you've been prepared for God's kingdom. It's been absolute joy talking to you.
Thank you,
Jake.
Yeah,
you're full of life in all its fullness, full of laughter and full of warmth, and you're genuinely interested in people. And I want to finish by saying just a quick prayer for you, if that's all right, mate, before we finish this evening. Let me just pray for you. Father, thank you for this beautiful, strong, courageous guy who's sought to live life to the full already, and you have given him so many experiences. But I pray, Lord God, that he will be what you have called him to be in the future. I pray for Rosie. I thank you for them both. Thank you for them coming into our fellowship and enriching our church here at the Engine House, Lord God. All they've got to teach, all they've got to give, I pray they'll receive that love from us. Lord God, thank you for them both. Thank you, Lord God, they have made our church rich. And Lord God, you've taken them so far through their life. That's our testimony. You've taken them right through every year of their lives. You've been there working in their lives, Lord. Thank you for them. May you use them greatly. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Can I just say one thing, Lindsay?
Go on, mate.
I do think if I just analyse the entire, like, you know, this direction, that direction of my life, I think for me personally, I've not been looking for love. I've not been looking for this or that. I've been looking for satisfaction. And I do think that out of everything that I've experienced, my relationship with God is so satisfying.
Yeah.
And I think that it is to a point where I think, offer me something better, do you know, to anyone out there, I would say, you know, I just find God to be very satisfying. My relationship with God
you
is
can't,
satisfying.
You can say that to somebody on the street. Have you got something better? Is there something better?
Yeah.
And I say it often, I say to people on the street, do you know anybody better than Jesus? Nobody's ever, you know, they might, you know, everyone that's ever lived has been human, but Jesus has shown this quality as the Son of God, you know. It's great, isn't it? You know, we're going to be interviewing Danielle next. Danielle, the teacher.
Go on.
And you'll love listening to her story. But for now, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay.
It's been great to get to know you. And I hope a lot of people who are listening to this will have learnt something really from your life story, or your God story, as you call it.
Yeah.
So that's it for my story, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time, where I'll have the privilege of interviewing a very vivacious young lady, Danielle. But for now, God bless you, and I hope you've really enjoyed it for tonight. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, hope you are enjoying our live streams.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to partner with us here at the Engine House Church with the work that we do both locally and abroad. Our hearts here are really to keep the fire of worship and prayer and the word and the mission of Jesus both here and across the nations.
That's right, and we have a couple of ways that you guys can partner with us.
Yeah, so on my right, we have a QR code. Now, all you need to do is get your phone, open your camera app, and scan that code, and that will take you to a gift app, which is totally free to download and allows you to give easily and safely to the work of the Engine House Church. And after this clip, we're also going to have a slide which shows you other ways that you can give. I would just like to add that if the Engine House Church isn't your local church, please don't give your regular giving and your support to us. That belongs to your local house. But at the same time, if the Lord prompts you and you've been blessed by these streams, then please do.
Yeah, guys, we just want to thank you for joining with us. It's so good to bless the Lord together.
Man, and we get blessed in the process.
That's right.
Come on, see you next time.
See you next time.